Well, today on Big 12 Radio, we are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. And, there are a lot of college football podcasts, but in my opinion, none better than the Solid Verbal. Dan Rubinstein from the Solid Verbal joining us here on Big 12 Radio. And nobody brings it in terms of creativity, great insight into the sport, into the teams, and hilarity, quite like Dan and Ty. What's up, Dan? How are you?
Wow, what an intro. That's like almost walk-up music before hitting third in the lineup kind of intro. I'm good. Thanks for having me. A joy as always. Love talking Big 12.
I aim to please. All right, so, from the 50,000-foot view here of the Big 12, because you cover it all, from the SEC all the way down to the Sun Belt, give us your sense of the conference this year, of what you guys have been discussing this offseason and the big storylines around the Big 12.
It's a really interesting reset year for the Big 12, and I don't mean to say it's an interesting rebuild year, because I think there are, when you look at the schools involved that should look competitive and fun and interesting, it's a reset in terms of, and unfortunately maybe because of the Brendan Sorsby story, a reset in terms of who is competitive, why they're competitive, and we've talked up Houston a little bit. We obviously saw the emergence of Arizona last season making a move to being a more competitive squad. BYU obviously continues to be in that conversation. I expect very strong things from Texas Tech regardless, but we don't know what to expect from a team like Kansas State. We don't know what to expect from a team like Oklahoma State, two teams who have been very competitive, the past, decade, 2 decades, whatever in this conference. And so I think that's kind of fun and interesting that we get some of those resets, or whoever's going to be that new emerging danger.
Yeah, no, well said. Of those teams, who are you most excited about? Who are you most anticipating, a turnaround? And why is it Oklahoma State?
Why is it Oklahoma State? It's Oklahoma State because they have a quarterback that teams seem to be willing to pay millions upon millions of dollars. And not that he's not making a good living for the Cowboys in Stillwater, but when your starting point is quarterback with huge upside, and the mystery of bringing in the last count I saw was 417 new players for Oklahoma State. Is that the official number of portal guys they've brought in?
Give or take a few.
Give or take. So you have mystery, you have quarterback upside, you have a coach who seems to be well regarded on the come up, and you have an exciting weird place in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So I don't know that they are emerging as a team that's going to compete for this conference. I suspect they won't, but I think they're emerging as an entertaining team. And if anybody has sort of watched in detail Oklahoma State football these past couple seasons, those moments have been fewer and further between than usual. So yeah, I think they have the capacity and potential to be going from sadness to exciting.
Yeah.
That's good.
You mentioned Sorsby. I'm at the point where I think he's going to play this year. I think Kessler takes Jeffrey Kessler, the famed lawyer that's taking on this case. He doesn't lose, especially against the NCAA. And I feel like Kessler hired Sorsby as much as Sorsby hired Kessler. So I don't know if he's not going to play 12 games, but I think he's going to play. What's your read on the situation, and what's your opinion on whether or not he should play?
I don't have a strong opinion. My read on it is it's sort of sad that, this is a reality of the world in which we live, in which, there are specific vices like wagering on sports that have become easier and easier to fall into a trap within, especially with the prevalence of how easy it is. Especially young men seem to be able to or are unable to avoid some of those pitfalls. And I feel for him. I like that he is accountable. I like that he's seeking out help. I'm sure that there is unless there is some sort of smoking gun about something he did that would question his integrity as a college athlete. And, we saw the stories about wagering on Cincinnati football while he was there, never against Cincinnati football. I imagine because the NCAA takes the losses that they take, and I imagine because Texas Tech is very important to the Big 12, I imagine that there will be a path for him to see the field. I don't know if there's a suspension until that point that's going to be negotiated, but I'm just sort of taking the tact where it was like, I hope this is a cautionary tale for others in this situation.
Right.
And I hope that he is able to sort of get the help that he's seeking and comes out of this on a better side of things.
Yeah, no, well said. Just across college football this year, not even just specific to the Big 12, like what are you most excited about? What are the biggest storylines you're excited about?
I love that there are so many familiar quarterbacks. You can take your pick and who's good, who's not good. I love that, and for all of the sort of things that people complain about with the NIL era and the portal era, we have continuity at big places, at perhaps somewhat big places. You look at the quarterbacks across the country, and C.J. Carr and Lenoris Sellers and Dante Moore and Julian Sayin and Arch Manning, that you look across the landscape, Avery Johnson, right? That seems to have been there forever, and it almost feels like a vintage or retro type feeling that we have this familiarity in a world where there's so much roster change. We have the quarterbacks all over the place. I also love that there's no clear and obvious favorite 1, 2, or 3 teams. That there is a mystery to even the top teams. And some of that's portal driven, and some of that is just. These teams they lose a ton of depth. Even the favorites that we perceive to be top 3, top 5, top 12 or whatever, that they're all losing depth. They all have open questions about key factors of their team, and I kind of love that. I kind of love going into a season where it's just like, oh yeah, these two teams are obviously going to meet in the championship game, and so like you have the Kurt Signetti return to like. Are they again a national title contender with fewer James Madison kids and a new quarterback? Once again, 3 quarterbacks in 3 seasons. But you look at what he gets out of that team, and you look at the continuity on that staff, I think has been crucial to their success. I like a universe in which the top of the sport seems wide open, and you have like mysteries across big programs, medium-sized programs, right? The new coaches in the SEC, a new coach at Penn State. I like all of those things. I think it's good for the sport. There are things that I don't love, and the player movement hurting how fans connect to rosters, I think is kind of a bummer. But in this specific year, I kind of love the ability to shrug and say, yeah, like maybe Michigan's awesome with Kyle Whittingham, but maybe they're 7-5.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of people in Salt Lake that kind of hope for the latter more than
I'm
the
sure.
former. And I'm sure there's some that are rooting for him to be successful, but it's just been a weird year in that way. Dan Rubinstein, Solid Verbal Podcast, joining us here. Verballer, is it verballers.com?
Verballers.com for the extra bonus content. The subscribers via Patreon are on verballers.com.
As an independent shop, I would encourage people to check it out, especially because one of my favorite things about Solid Verbal is, equal opportunity. You're not loaded with SEC and Big Ten coverage like most of the other publications are and podcasts are. You're talking about everybody across the board, and you celebrate the sport, which, I think is lost in this day and age of constant playoff discussions and measurables. And so that's why I wanted to ask you about the 24-team playoff or 16-team playoff.
Sure.
I start the intro there by saying, like, again, we're in a world now where everything revolves around the playoff and every conversation revolves around the playoff, and I think that has diminished the beauty of the sport, as I know you share as well, and you and Ty talk about that. But shed some light on that. What's your feeling on the 24-team or 16-team playoff, and how off-putting is it that the fate of our favorite sport here is basically between Fox and ESPN's wishes here?
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I will never push back on anybody who is bummed out about a 24-team playoff, a 16-team playoff. My only pushback is whatever, if it's good, if it's not, like, we never are going to fully understand the repercussions of decisions until we're actually faced with them. Like, we can't predict.
Yeah.
We couldn't predict what the BCS would do. We couldn't predict what a 4-team, a 12-team would do. We couldn't predict what realignment would improve and what realignment would hurt with the sport. And so I'm trying to have an open mind because we all predict terrible things, and sometimes we get cool things out of it. My general feeling is this sport is always changing. It's a sport that's been defined by change, and if the changes that happened within NIL or portal or realignment or broadcasting stuff truly affected you, you wouldn't be listening to this show in May, right? This is a show talking about college football months upon months ahead of the season.
Yeah.
So whatever college football has done wrong, it's kept you along for the ride. It's done enough. I would tell people who are feeling, sad about the potential to have like an extra long postseason and are, a postseason that's trying to be more like the NFL or other professional sports, that, I don't know, if you feel like it's going to ruin the regular season, I guess try it on for size and see how the regular season feels if we do move to a model with more teams in the postseason. My other bit of advice would just lean into the human aspect of the sport, right? If you're bummed out by the a huge playoff, plan more watch parties with your friends. Plan more tailgates. Plan more nights out on a Thursday or Friday night when your team is playing at a sports bar, and maybe don't worry so much about the bad that could happen. Worry about connecting with humans in your life and splitting some jalapeno poppers or, smoking a brisket overnight, whatever it takes for you to sort of use college football as a vehicle to hang out with people instead of using it as a vehicle to say everything is bad. How could they do this to me?
Yeah. Don't forget about the lifeblood of it, right? The pageantry,
sure.
The friendships, the connections. Totally right. Well said.
Because your favorite time with this sport is not I'm guessing here, but your favorite time with the sport is not necessarily, this was a great season for our team. This was a great season for our team, and I got to watch it with my dad. I got to watch it with my cousins who are, degenerates. I got to watch it with my kids for the first time, and it was so cool that I got to watch. I kept them up late past their bedtime to watch Texas football or Utah football or something like that. So I don't know. You remember those, you can build those core memories via the sport, and it's not necessarily because you fell in love with like a cornerback once.
What do you guys have coming up? I know you guys do a lot of great series throughout the off season. So what's on tap here for Solid Verbal?
It's a good question. We've been doing vibe checks. We've done Big 10, Big 12, and SEC with various guests. We want to do an episode leaning into what is actually still good about the sport and will be hard to kill about the sport as sort of a counter to the doomerism. So I think that'll be a fun episode. Previews start in July, which we're not terribly far off of. So behind the scenes, we're trying to learn where everybody is once again after the portal.
Yeah.
And no, I think, we do an annual episode called Sark Tank, where we pitch Andy Staples from On3 on various takes that we'll have ahead of the season, and he decides whether he's going to invest emotional capital in our predictions and takes.
And for that reason, I'm out. Go check out Solid Verbal Podcast, solidverbal.com and verballers.com. Dan, you're the best. Thank you very much. Take care.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Dan Rubinstein, Solid Verbal, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, and watched on Big 12 Studios. On the way next, Taman wrote down something, and I can't wait to hear what this is about. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.